Live? Tell me when we're live.
Was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in. It's a long 12 hours, the power's out again. I pray for inner strength and that we don't lose no lives. Just another day in the first responders' eyes. Half a cup of coffee's gone, the first run comes in. A car slid off the road, there's a family trapped within. My heart beats like a hammer, I can barely catch my breath. I'm thinking the worst and hoping for the best. Yeah, we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. It's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this burden when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on when those sirens are gone.
Hey, welcome to Making a Difference Wednesday here in the Fishbowl. You are listening to John and Sam on the award-winning Mad Radio Show, broadcasting you live from Fishbowl Radio Network Studios here in Globe Life Park, the heart of the entertainment district in Arlington, Texas. We are a first responder network, man, and we are here to heal our heroes, and that's what me and Sam are all about. And, you know, we take pride in what we do in serving our communities, and we have our guests today who serves his community, who served his country, who have served the people of Texas in a long career. I want to welcome Jim Ross. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, if I could just say a few things about you. You know, Jim is a retired Irving?
No, Arlington. I didn't retire. I spent about almost 14 years with Arlington PD.
And you're a Marine veteran.
I'm a Marine Corps veteran.
Marine Corps veteran. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You know, when we discuss, I mean, let me just go over some of the stuff you have done, which is amazing. Jim Ross now has a law group here in Arlington, prides on excellent service to his clients, to his community. They are a family-owned law firm that treats its clients in three major hallmarks: loyalty, honesty, and respect. And, you know, you get that as a veteran Marine. And, you know, when we all, you know, everybody makes those jokes about attorneys, you know, and goes, or lawyers, and, you know,
careful, you're outnumbered.
Yeah. You know, when you have someone with your background and integrity, you know, and commitment, because you've had that with the veteran service, you've had that serving our communities. So you've built such, you're a lawyer we can actually trust. Yeah. You know, an attorney we can actually have pride in and look to with great answers, for great answers. So, you know, you're, like I said, you're a former Marine, a Texas police officer, a DEA agent on the task force. Jim supervised local offices for some of the county's most prestigious law firms before opening his own practice here in Arlington. Having developed a strong tradition of service to his community and country as a Marine and police officer, he's brought the tradition to his law practices. And that's what we all look to when we seek help from an attorney or a lawyer. So thank you for everything you've done. I had the pleasure of being in your office not too long ago, and it felt like my man cave.
That's not to say women aren't welcome.
That's right. No, but as a retired detective from New York, man, I walked in there and I felt so proud because you back the blue, you contribute a lot to the community, and it just felt nice to see an office filled with memorabilia, not only of some sports figures, but of our law enforcement heroes and our veteran community. So it's nice that you show that with pride.
Yeah, I do. Very proud of all of that.
How long you been in practice?
21 years or so, somewhere around there.
What made you go? A lot of cops, they retire, and what do? They open up a bar. That's what I did.
Or going to personal training. I've seen a lot. Yeah, stay in shape.
Well, I own a bar and restaurant as well.
Oh, do you?
Let's not forget that, okay?
I didn't know that.
I own the Mercury Chop House Arlington here.
Oh, okay.
One floor above the law firm,
I did not know that.
So there it fits the mold.
Okay, so
yeah.
so you've
I'm stereotypical.
You stereotypical.
Okay?
All right, but you own your bar restaurant. You did that. But you actually uplifted yourself and you became a lawyer and attorney. Were you going through law school during as a cop?
No, when I was a police officer and I did all the fun things. I was a part of Arlington's first full-time SWAT team. I taught self-defense and physical fitness at the police academy. I worked undercover for 6.5 years or so, both at a local task force and with the DEA. And I got to testify in court quite a bit. As a federal agent, you're exempt from evoking the rule, which means you get to sit through a jury selection. You get to watch the whole trial from inside a courtroom. On a state level, you can't do that. Right. Yeah, they kick you out in the witness room. And I remember sitting through all these trials, and I testified as an expert on use of force because of my background in martial arts and use of force and things such as that. And I just remember watching lawyers in trial and thinking to myself, they suck. And there was a lot of lawyers, and God bless them, a lot of lawyers who don't know how to try a case in front of a jury.
Well, I think it's fair to say that there are lawyers that shouldn't be in the courtroom. That they do a great job outside of the courtroom, but when it comes to actually being and working with the jury and the whole protocols,
brilliant men and women. But when you put them in front of a jury, you guys have seen it here.
Oh yeah,
people get tongue-tied, they lock up, and they freeze. How do I talk to these people? And you've got to be able to communicate with them. So. I did all the fun stuff in law enforcement, so I decided at the ripe old age of 36 I would quit everything and go to law school, and that's what I did. I quit everything, finished law school in 28 months, came out, hit the ground running, working for some of the country's largest plaintiff firms, and worked with a lady named Erin Brockovich, if you remember.
Oh yeah,
Erin is
PF&G or PA.
Yeah. Erin's a great lady, did a lot of work with her around the country, and about 11 years ago I decided I'm going to go out on my own and do my own thing, and that's how I ended up here.
So you worked in California?
I ran, at one time I was running an office in San Francisco and an office here in Arlington as well. But Erin and we would work on cases in Nebraska and Florida, all over the country.
Oh, wow.
So we worked on a number of cases like that.
So, but now Arlington's your home?
Arlington's been my home since I got out of the Marine Corps in the very beginning of '83. Yeah.
Okay. Now, but
I grew up in Detroit, however.
Oh, okay.
I came here after the Marine Corps.
So, with a background expert in self-defense and testifying on justification, I guess throughout you've seen the media.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of the current issues that we're facing. And I don't want to pick out anything specific, but when we look at the videos and social media, a lot of the nation takes that for what happened.
They take it for
face value.
absolute
They
fact.
take
So
it
the
for
minute the
right.
story breaks, yeah.
Right, so they take it for face value, and they're like, oh, immediately guilty. As an attorney, you got to turn around and go, my God, there's got to be more to this story.
Yeah. Sometimes when you look at the social media and where this country is right now, and how divided we are in this country, whether you want to say we're divided by political lines, by racial lines, whatever, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's horrifically sad. And those type of divisive lines do impact your ability to prosecute or defend your client in certain circumstances.
Fairly, right?
Yeah.
Make it hard to fairly.
Well, it's prospective jurors enter a courtroom with their own bias and prejudice. We all have biased and prejudiced within ourselves.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, as a lawyer, my job is to find out if those biased and prejudice are something that's going to interfere with their ability to judge the case they're there for in a fair way.
You've gone through the chain. You've gone through as a lawyer before social media, right? So you've tried cases before social media.
Sure.
So you look at like the case in California, Rodney King, right? And they wanted to take it out of California. They wanted to take it out apart because too many people read the newspaper, or too many people saw the news, right? But now, it's got to be extremely hard to find a impartial jury that has not seen something on social media, right? Because it's at their fingertips.
Yeah, I don't know that you ever find a completely impartial jury. Even when you think you've picked one that's going to be fair, there may be certain bias or prejudice lingering there that you haven't, as an attorney, properly fished out of somebody. It's a difficult thing to do when you're sitting in a courtroom trying to decide, are these people right or wrong for this trial, whatever it may be.
Right.
It could be a personal injury case, could be a criminal case, could be a divorce case. When you're trying to decide that, you have to figure out who is going to be biased to the point where they can't sit on this jury. You're not picking the people to be on your jury. You're picking the people who don't need to be there.
So you got to be a mind reader. You got to be kind of clairvoyant to read these people.
Yeah, I'm anything but a clairvoyant.
Well, that's got to be. I mean, it's got to be tough.
I don't win the lottery. But, yeah.
Do you have somebody that assists you with that?
Oh, sure. If the trial warrants it, if it's on a more important trial, we certainly bring in jury consultants and people like that who specialize in the psychology of picking juries.
Yeah.
And things such as that.
My wife, she loves Bull. If you ever watch,
Oh, sure. Yeah, that show.
You see the glamorization of what they go through and how they can read people with heat, and that's probably
the heat maps.
The heat maps,
yeah.
And that's probably they don't pick juries like that, but
I use the same analogy in every trial when I'm picking a jury. I grew up with two parents who grew up from the South, even though I'm from Detroit. And my mother would occasionally cook a meal of liver and onions. And I hated liver and onions.
I'm right there
I
with
hated
you.
the smell of it. I hated the taste of it. I hated the sound of it. I hated everything about liver and onions. And I'll use that analogy because there's a lot of people like yourself who can't stand liver and onions. And I say, if this trial was about liver and onions, would you raise your hand and say, Judge, I don't need to be on this trial. I have a preconceived notion. I am biased. I am prejudiced against liver and onions.
See, and I like liver and onions.
There you go.
Oh,
So
man.
I'm good. I'm on the jury.
I think you and Steve,
No, but that's good. And do you really bring that up? Do you say
I
that?
absolutely bring it up. I mean, there's a number of analogies you can bring up similar to that. You remember George Bush, the vegetable that he hated. You remember that?
No.
Was it Broccoli?
Brussels sprouts.
Okay, I got the B right.
Another thing I love.
I love Brussels sprouts.
I can't stand Brussels sprouts. And I'll bring that up. And, and it gets jurors talking, and that's what you really need to do is get them talking.
And you know what? To me, if I was on a jury and I heard you and you was saying that makes a more personal connection too.
Absolutely.
It brings a more personal level on that. And that's where, I think your back experience as a law enforcement officer, as a veteran to our country, you know how to speak to people. You know how to make that direct connection and have that human connection, I want to say, instead of that classic book reading, robotic type of communication. So that's a joy to see that in any attorney or trial lawyer. And that's somebody you want to feel confident in. And, Jim, I want to just give your law firm a big kudos because I did meet with some of your staff. And, when you I've walked into attorneys' offices before, and you get that cold, like, ooh, you get that chill, because it feels cold. I walked in and I met with two of your staff members, and it was like sitting with my kid. It was just like, they were so pleasant and warm and open, and they were like, just it felt nice to be around your staff. It was
we are in Texas, I mean, yours and my experience.
I guess I'm thinking New York. Everybody in New York is freaking cold.
It's you could even walk into an AUSA's office and be like, okay, I think I'm not going to come in.
Yeah, but it was a nice open feeling, and I felt comfortable. I felt that I was their priority.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, you probably got hundreds of cases going on, but you know what? It was 100% focused and follow-ups and calls and emails, and it was
the care.
Yeah, the care. It was never dropping the ball.
Yeah. Well,
it was
that's
never dropping the ball. I didn't have to keep calling. I'm going to throw out the big shout out to you, Paige, who's constant emails. How you doing? Whatever. Just updates, and as a person, that's what you want in any type of service. You want updates. You want included.
And one of the things I was talking to Jim before the show that I noticed, because I was doing my homework, for the show, checking everything out, was that he has a fantastic video on his homepage, and it is all about the service that he and his firm that they do out in the community. I think one of the things I read is we'll probably see your name on the back of a 5K shirt, and I'm going to hit you up for the Travis 9/11 Heroes Run next year. But I thought it's very telling of if you're doing research to find a lawyer for whatever reason, and you always hope that nobody's in a shape where they need one, but that's where we are in society. Everybody needs a good lawyer, and to see that and to see all the work that they do in the community and how supportive they are of the place and the people where they live, speaks volumes.
But if I can take that a little bit further, I appreciate everything you both said. My philosophy has always been that a great lawyer or a great plumber or a great carpenter or a great whatever it is, doctor, doesn't necessarily equate to a great business. A great business person is going to know how to develop and nurture relationships. And that's what makes businesses grow. I've taught this class at SBA and chamber issues here, but you have to be able to develop and nurture relationships. And if you take that back into law enforcement, and I'm especially proud of this law enforcement agency here in Arlington, what makes a great police department, what makes a great police officer is that person or those officers who know how to develop and nurture the relationships with the community. And that's all aspects of the community.
Right.
And I'll be candid that the culture in law enforcement has been and continues today to not make it easy for officers to do that.
Do you think on that, I mean, and not being too political, but, you know, a lot of our law enforcement officers throughout the country have been handcuffed and not allowed to do their jobs and not allowed to do them effectively. Here in Arlington, I mean, Texas is a little different. Texas has not really constrained our officers. Austin.
Yeah.
But has not really constrained our officers as much as, you know, around Portland or Seattle or even New York, where just to do your job, your basic job, to control a crowd, the tools that you need to do that are taken away from you.
Right. So I told you that I'm a strange person. Okay. I spent nearly 14 years in law enforcement, all different levels and different jobs in law enforcement. And I can't sit here today and say that I know any individual police officer who I would consider purposely racist. Okay? However, I can tell you that law enforcement culture has worked to help suppress certain ethnic minority groups. And the answer to fixing that issue, and it's happened. I mean, the sad thing is this country brought in people of color and enslaved them. And then we said, well, you're free. Now you're equal. Well, they weren't. And then we said, now you can vote. Now you're equal. Well, they weren't. And we continue to suppress an African American community and never have put them on an equal plane. I'm convinced of that. Law enforcement culture helped that suppression.
Right.
The answer isn't to go back and handcuff agencies and say you can't do A, B, and C. The answer isn't to go in and defund the police. The answer is to put the community and the police together and educate both on how they can go forward from here. Because the truth of the matter is, we have fed this culture for decades. And I was a part of that culture. Now, I am a back the blue person. I've been the chairman of the Police Foundation for God knows how long, until just recently, where I had to resign because I had too many things on my plate. My son is a sergeant with the police department. I have led law enforcement forever and a day. That doesn't mean we're always right.
Oh, 100%. And, you know, that's one thing.
We've seen examples of that.
Me and Sam are on that same page. And I was just on a program on Sunday here at Fishbowl, Mental Speak with LT, and we just and T Hop, he's a Terrence Hopkins, he's a 29-year veteran in Dallas. He's a black officer and he's president of the Black Organization Officers Foundation, whatever it is, over in Dallas. And we were discussing that same exact thing where the culture, you know, I was a white officer in an all-black community, right? But I was lucky enough to be placed on a foot post for my first 6 or 8 months before jumping in a car and just driving around. I walked the community. So I got to meet the community. So as a white kid from the suburbs, right, I learned the culture of the black community. And I think that's what allowed me to be efficient in my duties as a police officer. I wasn't behind a door or a plate of glass just driving at 40 miles an hour through a community looking for something bad to happen. I was able to connect with the community and speak with people on a one-to-one level and learn who they were and what their culture was about. And I was very shocked because as a white kid from the suburbs, I had no idea, you know, walking into a projects in East New York, Brooklyn, it's a big difference. It's not like walking into a Cape Cod house, you know? it's a lot different. So it's very important to learn the culture. But the communities, the lower income communities and the black communities, they also have to learn the police culture. They have to learn what we're trained to a point.
Yeah, but that bodes the question: what came first, the chicken or the egg? Okay, because I've heard this argument before, saying, "Well, listen, don't you think the black community sort of brings it on themselves for how they deal with police?" Well, don't you think we've created
somebody actually said that?
Yes, I've heard that.
Wow.
I'm assuming y'all have heard that as well.
I've heard the us against them mentality.
Yeah, but not put exactly that way.
They've said it.
Yeah.
And my question is, well, don't you think we've created a culture that hasn't allowed them the opportunity to truly be out there and be on equal playing field?
But do you think...
I don't think we've created enough opportunities over the years, and it goes back to, before you, John, that we've had years and years and years of come to the table moments, community moments. I mean, the New York NYPD was known for its community policing for,
right.
Oh my gosh,
right.
How many umpteen years, and then the leadership changed. And it stopped.
And there leads the problem.
And then they tried the segues, and that just
no, but so is it? So let me ask you, Jim. So, is it a policing problem, or is it a political and upper management probably for the policies that are been enacted?
Let's look at basic little scenarios. I have a nice car. I'm driving my nice car in a bad part of town at 2:30 in the morning. A young black man has a nice car, just like mine, identical thing. He's driving his nice car through a bad part of town at 2:30 in the morning. Who's more likely to get stopped?
I agree.
Well, it depends. If you're working Vice, I'm going after you.
Well, yeah,
Sorry, Jim.
The reality of it is, when police look at those two scenarios, who's more likely to get stopped? Obviously, the young black man. But then you have to ask yourself, why? Why is that the case, that you look at that young black man different than you look at my old white self?
Culture and training.
Right.
But see, like, I'm just going to flip that script for a second, because once again, white cop working in an all-black neighborhood. If I saw a white guy driving around a neighborhood, guess what? You're profiled, and I'm pulling you over, because guess what? I'm thinking right off the bat, you're out to buy drugs. You're out to pick up a hooker. You're out to sell something. There was no reason for you to be in that community. So I guess it depends on the community.
At 2:30 in the morning.
At 2:30 in the morning. It depends on, right across the border, we had Hasidic Jews, the whole Hasidic community, right? Mm-hmm. If they crossed the street into, they crossed that Eastern Parkway, into the Crown Heights area, right? I would stop them. Why are you here? Why? Because you have a heroin problem and you're buying crack, or you're buying heroin, or you're picking up a prostitute. So it is, I understand what you're saying, but it's also the demographics of the community that you're in.
It is, but isn't it true though? Were you married when you were a cop?
Yes.
Did you ever have your wife say, "Stop being a cop"? Why do we always have to sit with our back to the wall facing the door? Why?
I got divorced by then. I followed that whole stereotype.
Yeah, we've all seen it where you're acting like a cop all the time.
Yes.
And that's part of the culture of law enforcement, where you get stuck in that. So whether you're
it becomes your identity. It becomes your identity.
And that's what we're trying to change.
Yeah. You have to be careful not to let that identity overshadow some of the basic human rights fundamentals.
That's the bias that you talk about, that we all come to a jury. We all come into every situation with a bias. You've seen things, I've seen things, you've seen things, and all of those, if they were major and especially traumatic, sticks with us. And as we go out into the world, the lenses that we're looking through for a while are a little bit of it, shaded,
right,
and jaded.
And that's one thing that I respect about you, is that you went from a Marine right? From serving our country, which, let me tell you, you've probably had a multitude of different
Experiences there, yeah.
yeah.
It was interesting.
Right. And then you went for 14 years in law enforcement, which, one, you have to become jaded in some way.
That's right.
Right? Now you're an attorney where now you have to strip yourself of both those functions, be impartial, and look at things for what they really are.
Yeah, now I'll be honest. My view as I sit here as a newly turned 60-year-old, I didn't want to say that too loud. My view on these matters has changed over the decades. When I was a young white police officer, I didn't see things the way I see them now. Mm-hmm. I was caught up in all of that. I was that, let's just go get them. I never considered myself a racist or being biased or prejudiced or anything like that. But I'm going to be honest, because I think we are obligated to do some self-reflecting on this.
Yes.
When I look back, I did things that were suppressive to the black community. And I know tons of other cops who did. Not because we were purposely trying to do so, but because we were caught up in a culture that didn't allow us to look outside of that box and think, maybe there's another approach to this. You know, you look at this most recent situation where the police officer shot the gentleman in the back 7 times getting in.
Jacob Blake.
Jacob Blake. And when you look at this scenario and you watch the videotape of this white officer holding on to his shirt as he's going into the car, as a guy that used to testify in use of force issues, first of all, I'm thinking, why are you letting an unarmed man get into the car and do things such as that? Because all of these things could have been prohibited. Okay. But when you look at the officer's face, you know what I see?
Fear.
Mm-hmm. Why? There were multiple officers there armed with guns, and I'm assuming tasers and pepper spray.
They tried the taser thing; it didn't work.
There were. I see fear. Now, how controlling was that fear, and did it come from a cultural place? Why was he so fearful at that time? What was that going on, and how much did those cultural differences play into him shooting this guy 7 times in the back?
What was the mindset? Well, you know,
I think only the officer can really answer that, because we would just be feeding into the speculation where, you know, yes, you do not let a subject, especially the call being what it was, you know, get out of your control, go into a vehicle with 3 kids
that he could have harmed.
And now we know the rest of the story, that he was going for a knife. And today or yesterday, a woman, you know, stabbed a Jacksonville police officer.
Yeah.
And they showed social media. They don't show the whole video. They do block it out because it's very violent. But they show how fast
she came out the door.
So I hear a lot of people saying, well, it was just a knife. You need to watch some videos and become educated, because body armor, that, you know, you came from the Marine Corps. A lot of people have this misunderstanding that the police officers are wearing body armor like our troops overseas. Not the case. You and I both wore body armor.
Right.
You wore body armor. Is a knife going to go through it? Heck,
cut
yes.
like butter. But, you know, you bring up a great point with what the mindset was, and you saw fear in his eyes. Now, just from March to now, you know, the fear in cops throughout the nation has risen, because you look in Detroit and Chicago, where 36 affiliate gangs now have put out hits on cops. All right. So as a young officer and you're out there worrying at any given time that you can be sniped, right? We have We have people not afraid to assault, shoot, stab, run over, as we saw in New York, police officers. So I think the level of awareness of cops is extremely high. Their head is on a constant swivel. And, it's almost like, when, as a Marine, being deployed or being out in country or whatever, not knowing what the next second is going to hold puts you on such a hypervigilant state that you don't know. Maybe your reactions are justified, maybe they're not, but they're survival actions.
Yeah, but is it possible, however, and I don't disagree with anything you've just said. I think cops are becoming far more sensitive to the dangers associated with what their job is. But have the African American community, have they felt similar type of pressures throughout the decades? If you're a young black man being stopped in the middle of the night by two white police officers,
without a doubt,
is the fear they're experiencing and going through that any less problematic for them than it is for the police officers who are now starting to experience that fear? And
great point.
Amadou Diallo.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think, we dated ourselves big time right there, but that was fear on both sides, and that was brought, that was brought out.
But I mean, every person we speak to, we've had Gary in here, and every time he gets pulled over, he is in fear for his life.
Yeah.
So, and that's a simple car stop.
Yeah.
And that's a simple car stop.
And that's why I say we don't defund, we reform. We look at law enforcement as a community effort. You have to put the differences together and say, listen, here's what's going on, and educate black, brown, white, and blue on the differences and how to deal with one another. And that's what's really, really important. And until we learn how to do that, the police are going to continue to feel threatened. The African American community is going to continue to feel threatened. Hispanics are going to continue to feel threatened. It's going to continue to get worse. And that's why I'm always trying to be careful about divisive rhetoric that blames one side or the other. And we see too much of that in politicians today, on the left, on the right, and everywhere in between.
Right.
I think
the media fuels it.
Just, you turn to whichever
Completely
channel you want to
irresponsible.
turn to get whatever twist or spin on things that you want to get.
It's funny you say that, because looking at this Jacob Blake thing, before I went on LaTanya's show, I wanted to do an experiment. So I watched Fox, and I watched them cover the case. Then I went inside to my living room and I watched CNN, and I watched them cover the case. Then I went to see MSNBC, and I watched them cover the case. And then I went on the internet, and I got 4 different stories.
Sure. Yep.
4 different biases, 4 different accusations, 4 different justifications.
Well, even the shooter
No
in
facts.
Wisconsin.
And no facts.
It's the same thing with the shooter in Wisconsin.
Right.
The 17-year-old now, he's in a world of trouble. But it depending on the news.
Yes.
I mean, I'm reading on the internet 3 different articles slanted in their own way, and I'm like, what does this even have to do with? I mean, it's like they just throw in stuff
and
just to make that little twist.
But see, and the news media has it where they're smart, because they know the general public, or the layman's like me and you, will only read the headline and the first
it's called
couple
clickbait.
words, right?
Yeah.
They don't know, like Jim, who's an attorney, is going to say, let me get down to that fine print and read everything. They hide the facts and the twists in the bottom part of any article.
Well, what have you and I been saying? That mainstream media thinks we're dumb.
Right. Oh.
And they're just going to throw up the clickbait. And by throw up, I don't mean actually. They're going to put up the clickbait to have you do exactly that and start sharing. Oh my God, look at this and look at this.
Right.
And then you get to day 3 and it's like, oh, I wish I didn't share that because now like the actual facts came out and now I look like an idiot.
Right. Now, what we talked about before about making your job harder or easier or putting that monkey wrench into your job as an attorney trying to defend somebody, or, with all the different twists and turns and roller coaster rides throughout, does it make it harder on you? Does it make it easier on you? What does it do for a person trying to criminally or civilly?
Or civil case, yeah.
So, in the world of litigation, we get, I've handled a lot of high-profile cases. My first reaction to every request by a media outlet is to deny any request. Because what's going to happen is just what y'all both explained, is depending on which outfit is broadcasting it, depends upon what twist they're going to put on it. And I just as soon let the facts play out in court and not on TV, because that taints your prospective jury pool. It certainly can make things more difficult when you have a very high-profile case, whether it be the 17-year-old in Wisconsin, whether it be Mr. Blake, whether it be whoever, Mr. Floyd's death, whatever it may be. It makes things more difficult when there's such a huge divisiveness.
And then they smear everybody.
Now they just go on back and forth. I mean, don't get me into the politics of it, because I'm tired of politicians attacking the other side for the purpose of attacking the other side. If politicians would spend their time more on doing their job, whether it's for the city, for the county, for the state, or for this country, this place, all of those places would be better off. Instead, we spend so much time attacking each other instead of working together that we get nothing accomplished.
And that's only the last few years we've had that. I mean, you look back, we've had bipartisan conversations throughout our politicians. It's just in the last few years,
it's really the trickle-down effect that we see from the bigger picture with the politicians, which is why our law enforcement community and is in the state that it's in.
Yeah.
We no matter what state you're a police officer in,
right,
you have seen some reform based upon what is going on in the country, rightly or wrongly.
Right.
I would say to the men and women that continue to serve selflessly, that are out there on the front lines, you will have your day where things will turn around, because what inevitably happens? No, because it has to happen, because those people that have changed the jobs and reformed and made rules preventing police from enforcing the laws that these people were voted in to office for, it's eventually going to go away. It's super ugly now. It's horrifically ugly. I mean, being a human being, it's you've seen what I've posted, dogs 2020 because people suck. I mean, it's like, so if we it's going to take time. But if the sides are not willing to come together,
back yourself up right there.
I'm backing. Bring it.
You just said it. It's going to take time. It's going to take time. Do you think our men and women on the front lines are going to wait that time?
I don't think they should have to wait.
I don't think so. I think what's going to happen in the near future is we're going to lose veteran officers. We're going to lose good officers to retiring very quickly. If you look at the standards that they just put out in New York City on the disciplinary actions that are going to be held against their officers, people with 15 years, 18 years are going to vest out of the job.
Yeah, why
I think
why
you're going to
stay?
see certain people like that. But, when I enlisted as a young 19-year-old into the Marine Corps back in 1979, I didn't enlist into the Marine Corps because I thought I was going to be rich or anything like that. I was an enlisted guy. I didn't have any education.
Right.
I enlisted because I wanted to serve, and I thought being a Marine was the best way to serve. And when I got out of the Marine Corps and I became a cop because I wanted to serve. And the vast majority of the men and women in uniform, whether they're police officers or military, this is where I disagree just a little bit. We're going to lose some of them because they get tired of the situation they're in. But we're going to keep those who have come to serve. And they're serving in spite of everything else that's going on. And knowing the cops the way I know the cops, given the opportunity to blend these cultures, to work through these things, these cops will line up and say, let's make it happen. We've started to see that. We see the cops joining hands, praying with the African American community, taking knees. When we create an atmosphere that encourages rather than discourages that type of behavior, we're going to start to see the change. And I agree, it's going to take a little bit of time to do that, but it's not going to take forever, because I believe in the men and women in uniform. I believe in them, whether it's military or police. And if they're given the opportunity to learn how to effectively work with an African American community, to learn the cultural differences between them and the Hispanics or anybody else, they're going to line up and they're going to say, let's do this together.
His experience says it all. I mean, if we have the people in command right now go back to, I'll call it the NYPD in their heyday, where they did actual community policing.
Correct.
And how successful it was. Take it as a model. Let's take best practices from there and move forward. But we are like, yeah, and I'm looking at the clock right now. And we're like, yeah. But if you guys listening, if you haven't, I mean, listening to Jim
it's amazing.
speak and the way he explains things, I think it's fair to say that, hey, if you need a lawyer, there you go. because this is, few and far between. You had wonderful experiences. Thank you for being on the show. And we never like to let a guest leave. How do people find you?
JimRossLaw.com, best way to find us.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're the Arlington attorney. You look up Arlington attorney. I need an Arlington attorney. Boom, Jim Ross pops up. And you know what? Don't be afraid to make that phone call. If it's just for a consultation, it's free. It's free. Give the call. I mean, everybody needs a little legal support every once in a while. Every member of the Jim Ross firm is willing to help. They are there to answer the questions. And you know what? If they don't have the answers, they're not going to hang up on you. They are going to find the answer for you, and they will get it to you. They do not leave you hanging. So, everybody has issues every once in a while. Give Jim a call. He's down to earth. He's a straight shooter, man. I mean, this was a great conversation. I think we did a lot more than just talk about attorneys and law enforcement. I think we really touched on healing and bridging the gap between our law enforcement and certain communities.
Lawyers are people too.
All right, let's not get carried away, okay? I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. Lawyers are people too.
I'm going to steal that slogan.
No, Jim, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Jim.
It's been a pleasure to meet you. It's been a pleasure to have you here. And it's been a pleasure to have your insight.
I appreciate it.
Especially as a veteran, law enforcement attorney, and just bringing that stuff to the table. I think that's done a lot. And what the show is all about. It's MAD, making a difference. I think you make a difference in the Arlington and surrounding communities, and I think you've made a difference. And check out Jim Ross, because it's wonderful to know you.
JimRossLaw.com.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, you hear the support that not only Jim, but his entire team at Jim Ross Law Firm gives to people. Hey, we got a team here.
We're gonna add Jim right to our list of our people here. So let me just really give a quick thank you and a shout out.
Yes.
Sure. All right. Well, one, we're going to put Jim Ross on the top. But you know what? We are always healing our heroes. So we want to thank Frontline Crisis Response Solutions, who's one of our partners in a badge of honor that me, Sam, and Jeff run. Healing Springs Ranch, John Edmondson, who was a guest on our show. The
And
Block.
Melissa Engel. Yep.
And Melissa Engel. Two great
Practitioners.
Thank you very much for putting the we're finishing each
I
other's
know.
sentences. The Block Foundation, Combined Arms, Heroes on the Water, the Blue Help Organization Foundation, Our Watch. Our Watch, I tell you, I'm gonna promote Our Watch forever, because they were the first ones ever to break into this battled head of mine in just an hour session, just speaking with them. I still get chills, because they made a breakthrough that not one therapist that I've ever gone to, or not one program that I've attended for post-traumatic stress has ever been able to do. But Our Watch did it. Those ladies at Our Watch, check them out. What a wonderful, wonderful program. State of Course, and 22 Kill.
Dan Lombardo. Hey, Dan. I saw your
over
post.
at 22 Kill, doing great things. Survive First out of Cocoa Beach, Florida. You know, Don Manda and Chris Fields and his
Doug,
whole crew.
yeah.
Doug. Don. You got me saying Don.
Yeah.
Doug. And then Trauma Behind the Badge. Check out Trauma Behind the Badge, because that is a wonderful webinar that they do every Tuesday night. Log on to Trauma Behind the Badge, register, and check out the amazing stories that these men and women share, and it helps you heal.
And
So,
you can find all of those on the website, abadgeofhonor.com. You'll see their logos in the middle there. You can click on it. It'll take you right to their page for more information. And hey, if you haven't had enough of us, John made a YouTube page, people. Go
Yes.
subscribe. That doesn't mean we're sending you magazines.
Yeah, right,
It
but
means
subscribe
that
to our
you'll just
YouTube.
get notifications when a new video goes up. So I just want to clarify, because I
That's
had some
right.
questions. So go subscribe. It's Making a Difference Texas. That's our YouTube page. And hey, if you like what we do, then visit abadgeofhonor.com, click on Mad Radio, and hey,
donate to the
50
PayPal.
cents.
50 cents. me and Sam self-fund this show. And as we don't mind, because we love healing our heroes. But you know what? A little extra support, $1 here, $1 there, helps.
And I
pay
will
for the
say,
show.
it's September. September 11th is right around the corner. Maybe a donation of $9.11. I'm just throwing it out there. Speaking of 9/11, real quick, the 9/11 Heroes Run, Saturday, September 12th,
Right here in
River
Arlington.
Legacy Park. Thank you, City of Arlington, for recognizing that the community needs to come together to recognize those fallen heroes. Again, Saturday, September 12th. Come out 7 a.m. Pre-race packet pickup, and we kick off at 9/11.
And then, you know what? September 26th, be a part of a historical moment in history, because for the first time ever, we have been walking the bridge for the last 20 months in Rockwall, Texas. We've been walking the bridge in support of our veterans and first responders on the 22nd of every month. Our voices have been heard, and that bridge is now being renamed to Heroes Bridge in honor of those who have lost the battle with PTSI. We have also put together a Heroes Bridge Memorial Park Foundation, which will be the first ever in this nation, a place for families to come and reflect on not how their loved ones died, but how they lived as heroes. So visit www.walkthebridge.org or bluehelp.org and find out how you can be part of this historical event. This is what healing our heroes is all about. This is what giving back to those families who've lost so much is all about. Breaking the stigma in mental health and changing the way we look at the mental health in our veteran and our veteran and our first responder communities. So that's September 26th, 9 a.m. in Rowlett, Texas. So anything else, Sam?
Hey, as always, if you're on the front lines, police, fire, EMS, you are in our hearts, in our prayers, corrections, everybody.
And thanks
on
to Mike.
keeping on.
Thanks to Mike.
New board up, Mike!
New board up,
In the house!
Mike, my son, who just brought up the Sharkey Awards, Fishbowl Radio Network. Congratulations on your 11th anniversary here And every year they do the Sharky Awards, and that is for your favorite show of the year, or your favorite host as host of the year. Log on to fbrn.us, and you can either pick your show of the year or your host of the year. So log on and let the voting begin. It's open now until October 10th. Awards will be announced October 11th. So until then, if you can be anything in this world, please be kind. Until next week, thank you.